Now, in that interview, Mr. Ficano brought up specific points about stories we have done on Wayne County.
So tonight we wanted to answer those questions that he asked. Two of our investigators join us tonight, Scott Lewis and Russ Jones.
So, Scott, let's start with you.
Well, Carolyn, I have to say that this is an unusual way to present this story. We'd rather focus on the government officials, their acts, but as you mentioned, Mr. Ficano asked that Ross Jones and I not participate in that earlier interview. Channel 7 honored that request, but then Mr. Ficano asked some very specific questions about our stories. So our intent tonight is to answer those questions. Back in May, I did a report stemming from allegations made by county insiders. The former head director of the county's Public Services Department and others said that millions of county road dollars were being misspent. They were being misused, sources said, to pay appointees who worked for Ficano and had nothing or little or nothing to do with roads. The more we dug, the more we found those allegations to be true. These are just three of the appointees named in the report: Ben Hemingway, Wasim Mahfouz, and Ernest Johnson. Sources told us that all three worked primarily for Ficano and virtually never spent time on the roads. In fact, Johnson admitted to Action News that he never worked on the roads in his entire career at the county. He worked for Robert Ficano.
A lot of documents that we give to 7 just doesn't make it on the air. For example, on the roads, the concern was, is there actually road money that's being misspent? I mean, that was the whole premise. And should people be on the budget that were in the roads budget? And we would send documentation.
Mr. Ficano is wrong on that. We did include documents that were relevant to the story. Take a look.
And the state isn't watching either. A spokesman for the Department of Transportation tells Action News, we do not do an audit of the county's road funds. And get this, the state Treasury Department, the agency responsible for doing those audits, hasn't done one in Wayne County for at least a decade.
Secondly, he claims that the state cleared Wayne County of any wrongdoing with its roads funds. He said the state found nothing wrong.
This is from the Department of Treasury saying that Wayne County, on that issue, to your producer, Ross Jones, there's nothing wrong. And then Michigan Department of Transportation, same thing, said they've had correspondence with the station and with your producer and said, here's the email, there's nothing wrong that's going on in Wayne County.
That's wrong, too. An MDOT official says that the state has found nothing wrong with the county's use of road funds because they haven't done an audit in at least 10 years because of a lack of funding. Instead, the state performs what they call a cursory review of the roads funds given to the county by the state. But they did not do what 7 Action News did, focus on individual appointees and see where they work and what they do every day. Here's another one of Mr. Ficano's statements we'd like to address.
Commissioner Varga, and I'll give you the email, was very concerned because she felt that the producer was trying to intimidate her and trying to manipulate the story. I'll give you the email that she sent to the producer.
Prior to airing a follow-up to that report, we contacted Wayne County Commissioner Ilona Varga, who chairs the county's audit committee. We presented her with what we plan to report: additional evidence of Ficano appointees stashed in other budgets. We asked her office repeatedly whether or not it would consider launching an audit based on these findings. Varga sent Action News an email later that day saying she felt that she was being intimidated into calling for an audit. I spoke with Varga tonight. She said she was under a great deal of stress at the time she wrote that email, and she told me this tonight by phone. I would not use the word intimidate. Maybe you were digging a little bit more than I'm used to. Now that I know you're assertive in your questioning, I would not be intimidated today. Quite frankly, I'm very sorry about that email. Don't let this become the story. Ficano is the story. Mr. Ficano also made an issue tonight about our requesting of public documents.
Channel 7 has, I think, over the past 2.5 years, have submitted over 100 FOIAs. The next closest, I believe, is the Free Press, which is close to 25.
We're very curious.
You are.
And by the way, this is all information that's a public information. We have a right to it.
You have the right.
Well, with all due respect to Mr. Ficano, those 100 FOIAs led us to Turkia Mullen's severance. And that story has led to 2 resignations, 1 firing, 1 suspension, and an FBI investigation. It's important to understand that we're requesting information that belongs to the public. Despite Mr. Ficano's promise of transparency, his office consistently delays our requests by weeks, sometimes even months. Mr. Ficano claims our requests are a burden to his office, but that's an unusual argument to make. By law, the county is allowed to recoup any cost it spends on compiling information. If any request presents a cost to the county, it has the right to charge us before completing any work. If we don't pay, they don't have to compile the information.
Ross, Scott, we'd like to let you know that we invited Mr. Ficano to come back in tonight to discuss this discussion that we're having right now. He declined that, but he did send us this following statement here, and I will read this verbatim. I stand by my interview this evening with Channel 7. As I am asked to be transparent, I must ask the same in return. I ask that the documents provided to your station months ago and again this evening be shared with your viewers and posted on your website. Signed, Robert Ficano. We certainly will continue our practice of posting documents that are relevant to the stories we present on the air and on WXYZ.com.
Now, Scott, I got to ask you a quick question. What is your take on what happened during the interview with Ficano? I mean, he obviously came here armed with ammunition against our 7 Action News investigators. What's your take on it?
Well, I think our viewers have to know what the ground rule was. The investigators couldn't be here. I couldn't be here. Ross Jones couldn't be here. Bill Proctor, Heather Catallo couldn't be here. If he had a problem with our story, why didn't he want to face us directly and confront us? To me, watching at home as a viewer, it looked like the classic document drop. He handed you those documents knowing full well you wouldn't be able to respond. You don't know the minute details of our investigations. That's not your job. To me, it looked like it was a diversion, an attempt to divert attention away from the fact that the FBI is investigating his administration and his inner circle has collapsed. We're going to continue doing our jobs. We do it accurately. We're fair. We always allow him to comment, and we're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to do, as Ross said, we're going to dig.
All right, Scott, thank you so much. Ross, thank you also.